How valuable would it be if you could guarantee that you're going to make progress and get your tracks closer to being finished every time you open your computer to work on music? In this video, I'm going to walk you through an incredibly powerful 4-step process that you can use to structure your music making sessions that forces you to focus on the changes that actually make a difference to your tracks instead of wasting time on insignificant details. Always gives you something to work towards so that your songs never stall out and get stuck in an unfinished state, and allows you to complete any musical project, big or small, by breaking it down into chunks and tackling it one session at a time. And I've made a very handy one-page PDF guide of this same process that you can open on your computer or print out and stick in your notebook or hang on your wall or just leave sitting in your nasty ass downloads folder to help you structure your sessions and unlock your ability to finish your damn tracks. Hit the link in the description to download yours. But first of all, let's talk about where this process comes from and why it's so powerful. Between 2015 and 2018, I was creatively stuck. I'd been making music with computers for about 6 years, and dance music had been my focus for about 2 years. I was reasonably happy with my technical skills, and I'd learned a thing or two about making club music just by listening to stuff and sharing with friends, but there was one skill that continued to elude me: actually finishing things. My rate of completion was about 1 track per year at this time. Every project I'd worked on seemed to take forever, and my insecurity about whether something would be good or not when it was finished was just pouring fuel into the engine of perfectionism and procrastination. The projects that didn't just get stalled out at the 4-bar loop stage took months and months of tweaking and refinement on every single aspect: the mix, the arrangement, the structure, and sitting at my laptop to work on music felt like a daunting chore. Finishing something would help my confidence for a few days, a week maybe, a couple of weeks if we're really lucky, but that inspiration never seemed to last because the end result was never as accomplished or effective as I'd hoped it would turn out to be at the beginning of working on the track. I thought that was just how I would always be, a detail-oriented, perfectionist producer who obsesses over every tiny aspect and takes months or years to finish a single piece of music. In fact, it was that belief that led me to the initial inspiration for the 4-part process I'm about to lay out for you. See, I like to think of myself as a meticulous, intricate kind of dance music producer, and as such, I gravitated towards the music of one TJ Hertz, better known as Objekt. Objekt is an artist whose work incorporates dubstep, techno, electro, IDM, ambient, electronica, much more besides, but the unifying thread between all of these is an ear for the finest possible details. No matter which era of his discography you dig into, you're gonna hear some incredible sound design and expansive, almost cinematic kind of arrangements. Here's someone I could look up to, I thought. He's just like me, for real. Except, of course, there was one key difference. Objekt actually finished things and put them out. Not only that, but his music was really good, and mine was just okay. I've spoken before on this channel about my route to finding my own creative voice as a dance music producer, but what I want to focus on today is the idea that in order to get better at making music, you need to get more practicing, complete more reps, finish more songs. You can't make better music without developing the skill of finishing things, and you can't develop that skill without actually finishing more songs. Luckily for me, Objekt, at least at one point in his life, was a poster. There's a PDF document that's been going around the internet for a few years that compiles a load of his posts on the Dubstep forum regarding all kinds of different topics to do with production, track writing, mixing, workflow, and in it is the first seed of the process that I use today that I'm going to share with you to finish tracks consistently. In the last couple of pages, in the midst of TJ saying that his tracks, at least at that time, would go through 20 or 30 different versions before being finished, he details a workflow organization method that immediately seemed like something I could use to help me focus and be more productive in my music making. Somehow it had never occurred to me to keep track of what I was doing. But as soon as I started doing this, I understood where I was, I understood where I was trying to get to, and I understood how much progress I was making each time I worked on a song. What that gave me was not only a sense of purpose and direction in my creative process, but also a way of measuring the progress that I've made on my route to get there, meaning that instead of getting lost in the woods and feeling like I hadn't achieved anything, I was ending each production session with a feeling of satisfaction and motivation that helped push me through instead of making me feel demoralized and giving up. I applied Object's method from 2018 onwards with every track that I worked on, and these became my first handful of releases with Pressure Dome. Over the last few years, as I've started to get more and more involved in tuition and coaching for other producers, I tried to help several of my students to use this same technique, but it didn't always stick. People would come to me trying to finish their tracks more consistently and in less time, and when I gave them the tools that I used to do exactly that, it didn't work. What I realised through trying to understand why it didn't work was that there was something missing, not only from the process itself, but from my understanding of why this process is necessary. I realised that if you're struggling to finish tracks, it's not just because you don't have that skill of how to finish tracks, although that is part of it. It's because you're trying to keep yourself safe. Making stuff, and to a greater extent sharing that stuff with the world, is an immensely vulnerable thing to do. You spend hours and weeks and months and years learning your craft and pouring your personality and ideas and emotions into your work. And finishing that work means saying, this is the best I can do. This is the best this work will ever be. And that's hugely painful for the ego to admit the limitations of your capabilities. If a song of yours remains unfinished, then it's still hypothetically possible that one day it will live up to the potential that you felt when you started making it and getting excited. And what's more, if you're not finishing your music and then sharing that music with people, you're not opening yourself up to judgment. We all have the voice in our head that says, what if people don't like this? What if this isn't good enough? Which really translates to, what if people don't like me? What if I'm not good enough? This is the real cause of why you find it so hard to finish music. This was the reason that I couldn't just share Object's workflow with my students and expect it to work. The difference between letting your insecurities stop you from finishing things and accepting that growing and getting better means letting go of that anxiety is the difference between playing not to lose and playing to win. Confronting those insecurities will make you a better producer and a stronger person. And lucky for you, I think I've found the key to help you do it. This is not an easy fix. It's not an empty clickbait promise. You have to put the work in. I can open the door for you, but you've got to walk through it. The only way to overcome your fear is to do the thing that scares you. And if you're ready for that, the key to breaking through that barrier that your subconscious has created to keep you safe is in step 1 of this process. Let's get started. Step 1, intention. The number one reason most producers get stuck with a song is because they don't know where it's going. If you know where you are and you know where you're trying to get to, the steps that connect the former to the latter become pretty straightforward to figure out, meaning it's always clear what your next step is. The key part of that formula that most people don't have is that understanding of where they're trying to get to. How is this the thing that helps you to break through that protective shield that holds you back from finishing tracks? Well, it's incredibly difficult to hit a target that you can't see. Your brain then uses the incredible difficulty of that task to justify doing nothing and therefore keeping you safe. Don't get me wrong, it's still difficult to hit that target, but if you give yourself as much information as possible about the task in front of you and develop your skills by taking lots and lots of shots on that target, it stops being overwhelmingly difficult and becomes something that you get more and more comfortable and confident with. So how do you set your intention effectively? Well, I think the most important piece of equipment a producer can own is one of these, a notebook. What this simple tool gives you is the ability to describe what you're doing and clarify your thinking so that you can be informed and effective when you're working on music. Grab your notebook at the start of your next session and write down as simply as possible what you intend to achieve in the time you spend working on music. The more specific you can be, the better. If you're just starting a new track, this might be something like, decide on an iconic sound that I can build my track around. If you're setting out to create an EP, it might be, choose the sounds and instruments I'm going to make my EP out of. If you've got a work in progress track, it could be, complete my first draft or fix the drum arrangement. This is going to be your goal, your guiding light, and even if you don't make it all the way there today, you'll be able to use this intention to clarify whether the things you're spending your time on are actually helping you make progress with the project that you're working on and help you work towards that goal, or if they're just distractions that are keeping you safe in the realm of, it's not done yet, I'm not ready. Step 2, preparation. Now that you know what you're trying to achieve, it's time to figure out how you're going to achieve it. To do this, you need to have an exported audio file of your track in its current state. If you've already used this process once before, then you've got one that you made at the end of the last session. But if you don't have an exported audio file for the track you're working on yet, just load up the project and export one out. Don't change anything in the project, don't listen to it, just export it at whatever stage it's currently at and quit your DAW. Resist the temptation to tweak. Listen to the exported file outside your DAW, just in iTunes or Preview or whatever. And as you listen, make notes on things you notice or want to change with timestamps wherever you can. This might be things like 28 seconds, hi-hat comes in too soon, or 1 minute 30, bass needs to hit harder. Rework the strings, 2 minutes to 2 minutes 30. If you feel like you didn't catch everything the first time you listen through, listen from start to finish another couple of times until you're confident you've made a note of everything. Now, what you've got on the hallowed pages of your trusty notebook is an item by item list of everything that actually needs to change in order to achieve the intention that you set in the previous step and get your track closer to being finished. Magic! You've got the map and now you can navigate to your destination with confidence. If you're starting a new project, then obviously you can't really do this part just yet. If you're happy just freely experimenting and playing around until you find something that's going to work, go ahead and do that. But if you're someone who struggles to start projects up and come up with new ideas, maybe consider setting yourself some steps to follow or restrictions to explore to help give your ideas some structure. Step 3, action. This is where you can finally open up your DAW and get to work. Save a new version of your project file with a new version number or maybe the date of your session, just some way of distinguishing between each iteration of your project. And then get stuck in. The important thing here is to work through your list one step at a time without getting distracted by other changes and tweaks that might grab your attention. If you didn't notice it when you were listening outside your DAW, chances are it's not actually worth your time. If you do discover something that you think is worth changing, just add it to the bottom of your list so that you can get to it later. The golden rule is that if it's not on the list, it's not getting done. Working this way laser focuses your attention on the most meaningful activities, meaning every minute you spend working on tunes is maximally effective so you get better results faster. Step 4, reflection. At the end of your session, it's time to take stock of all the lovely progress you've made. Look how many items you crossed off the list, aren't you clever? Export an audio file with the version number or date or both, and while it exports, have a look over your list. Which changes made the most difference to your track? Which changes came easily and which were more difficult to execute? These insights can help you identify where you might need to focus your attention in future to improve your skills and maximize the impact of your production sessions. If you didn't manage to complete everything on your list, that's okay, that's great in fact. Keep it so that you can get to those items next time you work on the project. Over time, you'll be able to track the development of your songs and your skills and start to understand what the process looks like from start to finish for you specifically when it comes to working on a track and taking it all the way through to completion. Over time, you'll be able to track the development of your songs and your skills, and you'll also get better at knowing what each track needs the most so that you can tackle issues more and more quickly every time you come across them. So there you have it. 4 steps to help you focus your attention, get past psychological and technical blocks, and help you consistently improve at finishing your damn tracks. Hit the description to grab that PDF guide, and happy music making.